Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. In today's video, we're going to continue this idea of making money online, talking about these different strategies. I was kind of talking about them in the last few videos, but what I really want to talk about is how you can build a career around selling online assets. And immediately, when people think of online assets, they typically tend to think, like, because they watch my print-on-demand videos, they'll think of, like, for example, different graphics or different pictures or creating some stuff on Midjourney. And that's not exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of you guys know that I made most of my money after I sold the business, the clothing business many years back. I make most of my money through blogs, or I'm in the process of selling almost all of them. And once I sell all of them, I guess I'll be a new man, new start to life. But essentially, what these blogs are just websites with articles, okay? And once again, I talked about this before in my last video, talking about different kind of ways that are AI-proof for the future. You know, when AI comes and we reach a point in a few years where it really has taken over a lot, there are going to be ways that you would want to ideally have already generating income for you before the whole thing kind of happens. So I'll just leave yesterday's video and the day before's video link in the description if you want to go see those videos. But let's talk about this. So essentially how I'd make my money is I would create a website around a topic. And this topic would be ideally very niche. You know, anytime that the website failed and I didn't actually succeed, it was because of this very first step that I messed up on, which is not having a extremely niche down kind of website. And I'm going to write ND here for niche down. And I used an example yesterday where I was talking about, for example, if you look at Christianity, there's different sects or different denominations of Christianity. And, you know, for example, Catholicism, if you do a Google search on Catholicism or anything related to being Catholic or anything like that, there's probably millions and millions of websites on the internet around that. But, for example, if you search Assyrian Christian, which is ASS and then Syrian, right? Assyrian, or AS and then Syrian, which is Assyrian, it's a certain type of Christian. If you search that, there's really not that many resources on it. And there's many resources online around these, not many resources, but there's many opportunities for people like me and you to tap into very specific niches that are very niche down. Now, I used a religious example right now, but you don't have to use religion as a concept to generate income from. There's different niches, different things that you can tap into that are very ultra specific. So I'll give you an example. About 4.5 years ago, I used to have one of these blogs or these websites about peptides. Now, what are peptides? Peptides are kind of like steroids. They don't work the same way, but essentially it's a liquid that you inject into your body that helps you have a certain kind of outcome. And at the time, peptides were not really spoken about too much, you know. A lot of people knew about, different steroids and different drugs, but they definitely didn't, at least it wasn't as common to talk about peptides. That blog was at its peak. I eventually sold it, and I went on from there, and it was actually a very successful blog. And one of the ways that I monetized that blog was I found a company that was selling peptides. I formed a relationship with them. I became an affiliate for them, and eventually, after getting a certain amount of sales, I would actually get a retainer where I would get a kind of like a base salary from that company. Now, once again, there are different ways to monetize, but essentially, creating a blog, the main concept about it is the niche. When you pick the right niche, when you pick the right topic, and for me, when I say the right topic, really what I mean is a low competition topic. That's really what I mean. The right or equals, right is equal to low competition, LC here. Why do I say that? Is because if you look at the internet, there are topics that there's tons and tons of competition on, right? Like, for example, let's use bodybuilding.com. Bodybuilding.com is an example of a site that has, I want to say, billions of dollars in sales, billions of views, billions of website clicks over time, that's a website that there's no way on this planet that I can compete with. There's too much resources, they have too much staff. They just are such a strong, dominant website that there's no way I can compete with them, not even remotely on the same topics. But we can enter the same industry, the fitness industry, for example, but I can tap in a different way and make profits and generate income off of the same audience. However, I'm just tackling it different, right? So for bodybuilding.com, you got people who are searching like, what's the best protein powder or best chest workout. These are examples of what we call generalized type of content that everybody's searching for. And that's not really too niche. This is why I say niche down. The further you go down in that niche, the more specific you tap into, the more profit you'll probably generate because there's less competition. That's the whole concept. The main goal with these blogs or these websites that I create is to find really low competition concepts, because if I have the mind to come up with the content, the reality is that there's other people probably searching for that, right? Kind of concept. So if I'm talking about peptides, it's a very low competition. There's not too many people that know about it. The reality is there's still people out there searching for it, whether it be 500 people a day, 500 people a month, doesn't matter. There's still people out there searching for this kind of content. So when I create a blog, it is simply a website with articles. And these articles, it's not just articles, but essentially these articles, depending on the niche, depending on the content that I want to cover, typically each website will house anywhere from 30 to around 90 blog posts. Of course, there's some websites that have a little bit more, some websites have a little bit less, but around there. And they'll be very niche, like I said earlier, but more importantly, these blog posts are essentially gasoline or fuel, and it essentially fuels the engine for me to make money. Now, how does that actually happen? Well, the blogs are simply topics that people are searching on Google. So let's say Sam searches something on Google. I'll draw a picture of a magnifying glass here to give an example related to Google. Hopefully you like my stick figure drawings. And what happens is once, Sam finds my article on Google, Sam clicks, and once he clicks, he reads through my article, and then he sees the different links that I have. Now, in my article, I'm really pointing him towards a solution to the problem that he has. So every article I write is problem-solution oriented. So any kind of topic is problem-related. Let's use something as simple as a recipe blog, for example. If you have a recipe for, let's say, keto-friendly, high-protein desserts, okay? That would be a problem that somebody has. Somebody wants to find out recipes. Their problem is maybe that their meals are just not tasting good. They want something sweet. They're looking for an alternative. They're looking for something better, but they don't know where to go to. So they go to Google and they find the solution from your article, if that makes sense. Now, within your article, you're going to embed, or this is what I did at least, embed all kinds of different solutions manifested. So if I'm giving, for example, a recipe about a certain food or a certain product, or I'm recommending a certain type of workout plan, or whatever the case may be, there's different products attached. Now, we spoke about this yesterday, but there's 4 different kinds of products. First, we have the digital product, okay? We have a service. We have a physical product, so I'll put PP here, physical product, PHP, right? Physical product. And then finally, we have a membership product. So these are roughly, most of the time, the 4 types of products that I would own, or I would have ownership over, right? That come directly to me in terms of income. So then we have kind of the secondary level of income, which are options that I don't necessarily own right off the bat, but it produces some sort of income. So for example, affiliate income. So I mentioned that example earlier with the peptides. That's affiliate income. A website that I just sold was one of my most successful websites. I sold this right prior to January. Was a treadmill company website. Now, I spoke about this treadmill company before, but by far my most successful website of all time. I review treadmills on different articles. I review them. I explain the benefits, the pros, the cons, the problems, things like that. And I have an affiliate link to each of the treadmills. And some of the treadmills are actually pretty expensive, and you have different gyms and different people ordering these treadmills. and I get a commission of sometimes anywhere from 10 to 35% depending on the company. So for example, Peloton was a company that I was an affiliate for, and I actually was able to work out a custom commission of around 32%, which is actually very, very decent. You know, sometimes a treadmill can sell for $2,200 on Peloton, and the bike system and all these kind of different companies. And there's other companies as well where they have these cool little gadgets on the treadmills. They have like these racing components where you can turn on like an app on the treadmill or on the bike, and you can race other people. So there's a lot of cool different features around it. So I'll do these reviews and I would get commissions on that. That's an example of secondary income. I don't necessarily own the system, but it generates income for me every time. Another one is ad space. So because I have articles in a very particular niche, right? The company would come to me and say, hey, how can we work together? How can we collaborate? Now, 9 times out of 10, what they're really asking for is how can they get an article on an article that they've written on my website so that they can utilize my traffic. But really, I come back and answer them and I say, hey, if you want to just pay for ad space on my website, pay me X amount, and on the sidebar or on the banner or whatever, I'll put your ad up and I'll link to your website and we'll keep it up there for X amount of days. So that's an example, right? Ad space. So like I said, somebody will pay for a position to be on the website. Very simple. Okay. Another one is for links, right? So maybe sometimes a company wants to be mentioned in an article and they're willing to pay a certain amount for it. And usually these are permanent links. I'm not going to just remove them, but somebody will pay $200, $300, $400, $500, sometimes $1,000 just for a simple link to be in the article, especially if the article is getting traffic, right? So these are different examples. Now, once again, this is all predicated on the traffic. And how do you get the traffic? It comes down to picking the right niche by niching down. That's my strategy. There's other people who don't do the niche down strategy, but everybody has their own approach. I personally found it easiest for me personally, and everybody has a different style, is to niche down as far as possible, and my articles kind of appear. So I'll give you an example. When I was doing a review of a certain kind of treadmill, there was no other competitors on it. It was actually a treadmill sold on Amazon. Well, I ranked first on the Google, on Google for that when people were searching the name of the treadmill and then review. I ranked first simply because there was no competition. There was nobody else putting out a review on that. That's what I mean when I say niche down, very low competition, zero problems, right? And it does get traffic. Now, something about Google that is very, very special is there's something called Google Adjacent Search. Google Adjacent Search. So for people who are SEO freaks, who are like really, really like all on SEO and they know all the SEO and they know how to do SEO, there's something that's really awesome about Google Adjacent Search. Google Adjacent Search just basically says, if you are not selecting a certain type of keyword to rank for, but it means something similar, they'll put your article in front of that viewer's face if there's no other opportunity or there's no other segment that's similar. So, for example, if somebody's searching for, let's say, let's just use I'm going to make up a name of a treadmill, right? Let's call it the RX7, okay? And they're asking for a review of the RX7. Now, this treadmill might have came out in, let's just say, January of 2025, okay? And let's say nobody had reviewed this yet. What happens is Google will kind of scrape the whole World Wide Web and see if they can match that user's need, right, of the RX7 review. If it doesn't exist, they're going to look for something as closely as possible related. What could happen is my article or my website could have an RX6 review from 2024, right, the 2024 model. And what happens is if there is none of this, mine could pop up and I could get traffic based on that. So the person can click on that. Now, the reason why that's so nice is because this is the perfect example of Google Adjacent Search. There's a lot of searches on Google that happen each and every day that end up nowhere. So what does that tell you? It tells you that there's a demand that's not being met. And Google filled in the gaps by creating this Google adjacent search to their algorithm, which basically means that Google is going to try to find adjacently anything as similar as possible to the user's needs if there's currently nothing that can provide or suffice that need, right? So they're going to have to kind of grab topics from elsewhere. So that dramatically helps me out because sometimes I might not necessarily title properly or anything like that, but I will still get traffic on that article for something similar simply because the query is somewhat related and there's no other person to suffice the need of the viewer. And once again, this is all because of my niche down strategy. Now, this is all an engine. Like I just said, when you create a blog, right, it is essentially adding fuel to that engine. And the engine is going to be running, right? And if you have product to sell, or if you have affiliate marketing or any of these kind of monetization methods that we mentioned earlier, which I believe I mentioned them right here, yes, any of these kind of monetization methods, if you have them, well then guess what? The engine turns and you make money. If you don't have the monetization strategies implemented, then you don't make money. But the point is that these are the monetization strategies. And what happens is one of the easiest ways that I found to be able to generate income, throughout all of these things is actually selling ebooks. And I talked about this maybe last year. I'm not really sure when exactly I talked about this, but ebooks has been one of the things that not only has helped me solve the user's need quite dramatically, but helped me generate quite a large amount of profit. And I'll tell you why. So if you've already kind of put two and two together, I'm not selling ebooks for like $2 or $3 or $5. In fact, I might be selling ebooks for $40+. Now, people might scratch their head and say, $40+ for an ebook? Why would somebody buy that? Well, the reality is it's absolutely a positive thing. I'll tell you why. The reality is because I'm niching down in such a way, right? Most of my viewers, I guess you can say, in these blogs and these articles, they don't actually have another resource for success. They don't actually have another resource for figuring out the problem to their solution to their problem. They really don't have an option. So what they have a problem is they need a solution now, and they need the information as soon as possible. The reason why ebooks are better than most other avenues is simply, let's break it down. Well, if I sell a digital product, I'm usually going to have to fulfill the digital product. I'll give you an example. A physical product, not a digital product, but a physical product. I usually have to fulfill that product. Let me give you an example. I had a blog that I had recently sold, maybe about 4 months ago. And once again, I'm in the process of selling all of them, so it is what it is. But it was about mental health, and this mental health blog sold a mental health written journal, and I would actually get these journals printed very, very cheaply overseas and get them shipped. In fact, the shipping was costing more than the actual printing. The point is I think it cost me like $1.10 to get all, each journal from China to America. And these journals, really high quality, really nice, cost about 10 cents to produce and about $1 to ship. So you could just wrap your head around the numbers here. Pretty simple. Now, this was a physical product, and to be honest, the customer could buy this lifestyle mental health type journal pretty much anywhere. They could buy one on Amazon. Maybe it might not be exactly the same quality, or maybe forget quality. I mean, it's a notebook at the end of the day. They could print out pieces of paper and use that as a journal. I mean, they could effectively find any solution pretty much for free. That allows you to not be able to charge as much for the product. So that's the first problem. The second problem with the physical product is the aspect of the labor. I don't want to have to sit there and pack products and things like that. But once again, it was part of what I did. And this was like 2-3 years ago that I was really, really selling a lot of them. The point is over time, I had kind of switched over to a different strategy where I was getting them printed through Amazon. But the point is that I had learned that physical products are great, but they're not the best. And that's kind of when I started to dive a little bit deeper into ebooks. And ebooks, because they solve an individual's problem, the price at which you can charge is much, much more dramatic. And it has to be a specific problem. It cannot just be any kind of problem. So I'll give you another example. So I had an article, or not an article, but a website related to alopecia eretria. Now, for those who don't know what alopecia is when you have hair falling out of your head. And sometimes it's from stress, sometimes it's not. But essentially, there are these patches on your head that literally, the hair falls off your head. People think you're sick or something like that. And I actually have or had alopecia. And I actually started to get it in the 7th grade. And I didn't know why. And I only kind of figured out why when I was around like 24, 25 years old. And it was because I was personally eating too much red meat. Now, when I stopped eating red meat, my hair actually started to grow back. Now, that solution is not the same for everybody, but what the ebook talks about is essentially me learning or figuring out how I actually figured this out, how I came across this conclusion. And what I learned is that, because it's an autoimmune disorder, when I would eat too much red meat, I would start getting signals early by skin off my fingers starting to flake off. And they would become real dry and they would fall off and it would hurt my skin. Like, it would be hard to even hold a pen or a pencil. And I remember dealing with this even in high school. In high school and college, I used to have this issue. And obviously, it's embarrassing when your hair is falling out. It just looks weird, right? You have patches on your head. It doesn't look right. So what I did was I just got lucky. I kind of figured out, wait a minute. All the time when I eat red meat, the skin off my fingers fall off a little bit more than usual. Maybe that has something to do with my hair. I stopped eating red meat, and then what happened was the skin just stopped falling off of my fingers, right? And then over time, my hair, I noticed no more patches on my head, and I started slowly recovering the growth on the patches that I did have, and I didn't have the issues that I used to have. So what my point is that I had found a solution to a very, very serious problem that existed in my life. Now, in the world of alopecia, if you go to any kind of doctor, any kind of dermatologist, you ask them, how does somebody get alopecia? How can somebody stop it? They'll simply tell you, we have no answer. We don't know. Science doesn't tell us. Now, that might not necessarily be true because, like I said, I had discovered something, and it's different for everybody, their solution. Some people just eat differently. Maybe they switch up. Maybe they don't drink coffee. I don't know. Everybody's different. But for me, that was my solution. And really what I was teaching is how I came about with this problem, how I found the solution. And that's what I was teaching in the ebook. Now, because alopecia is actually a very serious problem, and a lot of people take it very seriously, you could just imagine if a woman has a patch on her head, you can just imagine how emotional and problematic that could be for an individual. And there are some people, and for me, I was honestly very flexible. If I had a patch on my head, I'd just wear a hat and call it a day. It wouldn't be a big deal because I kind of made peace with it. Some people, it affects them very deeply, very deeply. And so creates depression, all kinds of things. So people are looking for a solution and they are deeply in need. And so if you charge $55, $65, $100 for an ebook, that's not a crazy ask. People are going to doctors, spending tons of money. They might not have insurance. They're getting injections, they're getting treatments for hundreds of dollars at a time, every single week. It's not something that's far it's not a far ask for somebody to pay a certain price like that for an ebook to get more insight on their situation. Now, of course, you're not providing guarantees. You're not providing a guarantee that you're going to help somebody, but you're just simply sharing your experience. And this was what I was doing. I'm not telling you guys to do this. I'm just simply sharing what I was doing. And that became not only very profitable, but more importantly, it helped a ton of people because then they started being intrusive on what they were eating and what was causing them issues. And that ebook opened their eyes to this idea. See, a lot of people before I started selling that ebook, a lot of people just believed this is the condition I have. This is what I'm just going to have to suffer with. It is what it is. I'm going to stay depressed. I'm going to have anxiety. It is what it is. But they didn't really open their eyes to the ability that, hey, you could actually kind of fix this thing. Because you have to remember, I only started figuring out that I could solve this maybe 13 years later? That's insane. So the point is that you have to niche down, you have to find a very serious problem that people have. and you have to solve it. Now, here's the thing. This is where kind of the people who get caught up in money kind of get confused here. If you have no experience in a certain concept, don't write about it. If you have no knowledge and you can't really help people, don't write about it. Everybody listening has expertise in something, has experience in something. It could be something as simple as raising children, being a mother, being a father. It could be something as complex as going through med school and how you figured out how to do that and deal with the problems associated with that. Everybody, like I said, has an expertise and an experience that they can share with the world through their products and through their websites and things like that. So let me kind of give you a revamp here and a concept. So it starts off with a website. The website not only solves extreme problems, but they're extremely niche down, very niche down, okay? Now, once they're very niche down, it solves extreme problems. The products are readily available to the consumer by reading the articles, okay? Each website will have roughly 30 to 90 articles. Now, could be a little bit less, could be a little bit more, but that's the general concept. And the articles serve as fuel for the income strategy sources. And we already spoke about what those income strategy sources are. Memberships, physical products, digital products, things like that. So services, things like that. And then the secondary sources of income. I won't mention them right now because we already mentioned them, but you get the concept. And so what these are forms of income. Now, when you create that ebook, when you create that digital product, when you create that whatever, you need to have something called a landing page. See, when you create the product, you have to find a way to actually transact with people. You can't just say, hey, I have a product, email me if you want to buy it. That nobody's going to do that, right? Nobody wants to wait for a product. This is 2025. People are not going to just sit there and email you and say, hey, I'm interested in buying, right? Or they might if it's a very serious problem, but it's not something you would want to do. You're really hurting yourself in that case. What you want to do is you want to create a landing page. So what's a landing page? A landing page is a page in a website, right, that people land on or people go to essentially buy the product. So there are certain ways that landing pages are formed and certain ways that they're created, but essentially you have all the information around the product and you have what's called a buy now button. And the buy now button, once people click on this button, they'll be taken to a place where they can exchange their money for the product. So in my case, I always use an app called Stripe. Stripe takes people's credit card information, right, and sends me the money, and it submits people into like a customer kind of website, I guess you could say, customer backend, customer panel, where essentially their order's fulfilled now, where if it's a digital product, they'll have access to it. If it's a physical product, their order will be fulfilled, things like that. And so that's what Stripe does. Stripe is pretty much well known all around the world. I mean, everybody pretty much uses Stripe, and I would say it's the best payment processor. Some people like to use PayPal. Everybody's a little bit different. I personally don't do business with PayPal, but everybody's different, and everybody gets to choose what they want to do. PayPal is super easy because all you have to do is just type in your email, your PayPal email, the PayPal account, and that's it, and you make money that way. But everybody's a little bit different. So what happens is you could see this kind of whole strategy here. This became my official daytime, I guess you can say, job or business, this whole strategy, ever since I sold my business about 8 years ago. And what the business was, and I said this story before, but it was a clothing business. And, it was just that simple. So what happened was in my clothing business is I had bought a lot of products from overseas, but I thought I was going to sell them on Amazon. At the time, I really didn't know how to get Amazon to succeed because there's competition at the time. Now, honestly, there was a lot less than, what today has, but I just didn't know. I was a beginner. This was my first business ever. So what I decided to do was I decided to learn how to create a website. And that actually took me like 6 months to figure out. But nonetheless, after I figured out how to learn how to create a website, I had to figure out now how to get customers to the website. And it took me 3 months to get my first customer, and that was that customer actually bought a hoodie that I sold for $59. And I couldn't believe it. I told this story before, but for me, I didn't have $59 to buy a hoodie. I couldn't imagine somebody buying a hoodie for $59, but it happened. And ever since then, it was upward and onward. I was selling more and more products. I was shipping them out, getting them finished. This was all during college. And then finally, the business got to a certain pinnacle where about a year and a half later, after the first sale, I sold. And from there, I kind of didn't know what to do. And I kind of told myself, okay, well, I did SEO, right? And I did some social media marketing. I did some things to get customers. I could do this all over again, but for different websites. And instead of me building brands, like clothing brands, the main fuel could be blogs. And I could sell all kinds of different products. And that's kind of where my journey started in, I guess you could say, financial freedom, because I wasn't necessarily tied to the orders anymore. I wasn't tied to, like I have to ship out this order, I have to do this, I have to do that. But that's kind of how it all started for me. And I use the skills that I've gained from social media marketing to SEO to website building to all these kind of things to create website after website after website to do these things. And my main goal was actually to diversify my income. And I've told this story before, but the reason why I wanted to diversify was because once I had sold that clothing business, I had no other income. I actually, at that time, I knew what it felt like to a little bit diversify, because I did have KDP and I was making money off of KDP and it was doing very well. But after that, I had no other income. And so what happened was I decided, okay, I'm never going to really let this happen to me again. Although I sold my business, and that's a great thing, what if I didn't sell? What if the business went down? How else would I have made money? And that's where this idea of diversification really, really hit me. And you guys know me. I'm a diversification freak. I talk about diversification all the time. And the reason why is because I truly believe in it. If one income source is 100 times worse, even if it's 100 times greater, than having 100 income sources or 200 income sources or 5 income sources or whatever the number is, right? It's irrelevant. The point is you want to diversify. And I tell you guys this all the time, but if you have a Redbubble store, right? Redbubble.com is a place where you can upload designs and, generate income off of those designs on t-shirts, on hoodies, on jackets, on whatever. Why not create some diversification? Why not have different Redbubble stores? Why not create different TeePublic stores, etc.? And that's exactly what I did when I was talking to you guys about Redbubble back in the day. You could see that I had the same mentality. For those who watch those Redbubble videos, know that I did this little series where I created a new Redbubble store every month, and I would design the maximum amount of designs each and every day on the Redbubble store. And then once the month was over, I would go to a new Redbubble store, create a brand new one from scratch. And the idea is that if something happens somehow, some way to one store, I'll still have income off another. Now, a while later, I actually ended up selling some of those Redbubble stores, and they were assets. So diversification has so many benefits, and really what diversification is in this concept is just having multiple websites, having multiple blogs, creating income from you in different areas and different niches and different industries, so that just in case, whether you sell a business or whether a niche falls for some reason, or you have some sort of hack or some issue on a certain business, you still have other sources of income that can keep you standing as opposed to a complete devastation. All right. So this was essentially how I became financially free while I was in college, pretty much making money. And hopefully this kind of helps you out. And if you want to learn more about this, I'll definitely kind of show you how to create everything, kind of set up everything. But if you want to learn more, let me know. But this is essentially what I do aside from, trading some stocks, investing in some stocks, doing some crypto here and there, aside from YouTube, aside from, print on demand and stock photography. This is technically my main thing. Now, once I sell all my different blogs, I think I'm going to create like a few more, probably no more than 5, and just use those for now while I'm doing everything else. So that's pretty much all I got for now. I'll talk to you guys later. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully it was informative. My goal is to be informative. And more importantly, hopefully it was effective. So, we've been recording for 35 minutes, but I think it was pretty much action-packed. And hopefully you guys enjoy. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching, and peace out. Bye.